Warhammer 40,000 Renegades, Lord of Excess by Rich McCormick. Chapter 26. It took some 3 months to repair the damage to Xantine's throne room, with at least half of that time spent scrubbing the filth deposited by the Beast of Nurgle. The first few mortals unlucky enough to be dispatched into the chamber had, like Quarantoon in the hours before he died, become its toys, their screams turning into sputtering coughs as the cornucopia of the plague god's diseases took hold. Sophisticants had found these unfortunate souls when they unsealed the doors, weeks later, now bloated, walking corpses that pulled chunks of flesh from what remained of the word-bearer's desiccated form. Of the beast itself, there was no sign. Cecily would not return to the throne room for another month after that. "What did he mean?" she asked, after the night concluded. "Your brother said that I might be able to get us off Serene. What did he mean? If I can help us escape, I will." Toon was mistaken. Sergeant, on the other hand, seemed truly cowed by his revelations about the fate of the exhortation. The demon had been petulant by her very nature, but she rarely fought for control of his body anymore after Toon's death. "You have shown your strength," she said. His curiosity piqued. He asked her outright why he had changed tack, even when he surrendered control of his body willingly, such as when he foraged through the remnants of Quarantoon's collection for Neverborn to devour during his meditations. Sergeant would not take advantage in the way she had before. She offered him everything he desired, her strength, her wisdom, her knowledge. They lay entwined in their shared consciousness for long days, drinking the pleasure of their subjects, blissful in their closeness, both physical and immaterial. It was perfect, almost perfect. At times, Sergeant appeared almost distracted, her focus not directed at him, but elsewhere. He caught whispers in his mind, snatched words and garbled noises that sounded like half of a conversation, distant, their meaning lost. "Nothing, my love," she said. When he pressed her on the subject, just echoes of sensation, reverberating through the Imperium. Pay them no mind. But he could not. They haunted him, these whispers. In his bedchamber, in the darkest night, he put his own meaning to the sounds. They spoke words that cut through perfection like a knife. Deceiver, they said. Liar. Betrayer. The council chamber was a pathetic sight. With the deaths of Sarquil, Toricon, and Quarantoon, the space was rarely used anymore. Xantine had considered raising the best warriors of the Adored that remained to the open positions, but with his rule of Serene and his warband absolute, he had decreed the council superfluous to his needs, disbanded it entirely. He had not mentioned that, of those adored who did remain, few were capable of holding a full conversation, let alone offering strategic insights or military advice. And yet he still chose the venue for his conversations with Vivisk. He saw his brother so infrequently these days. The Noise Marine lived a hermetic existence, having given himself over almost entirely to his choir, dwelling within the confines of his howling fortress. The Cathedral of the Bounty's Harvest had grown alongside its choir master, its frame becoming almost as warped and twisted as Vivisk's. Great fluted pipes sprouted and rose from the structure's ancient exterior, the vast stones used in its construction growing soft and spongy as it expanded to new forms. Fluids trickled from its walls, coating growing protrusions that looked like sensing organs, fingers, noses, ears, and eyes. As if the cathedral itself was desperate to absorb the music created within its confines. To leave such a beautiful place pained for Visk, as Auntie knew. And yet here he was. "Thank you for coming, brother. You are my warlord. You requested my presence," Visk said. Even in direct conversation, his voice was loud enough to shake the carved door in its frame. The cup slave dropped a golden goblet in fright, spilling dark wine across the polished wooden floor. "Your fealty has not gone unnoticed." Xantine paused, and inspected his glove. A new pair, these crafted from the leather of the predator rays that floated through the skies above Serene's grass fields, and bleached a pure white. "This chamber is a different place without our departed brothers, is it not?" "It is quieter," Vivisk said. Xantine's lip curled into a smile at the irony in the statement. Vivisk's voice could stop a rhino transport in its tracks, but he realized his brother was not making a joke, and he reset his face to one of brotherly interest. "How many years have we journeyed together, Vivisk?" Bloodshot eyes stared back from a misshapen sack of a face. The vox grill that took up the lower portion of Vivisk's skull dripped with liquid. A combination of saliva, lubricants, and other unguents. The mouths on his neck whispered their answers, each one offering a different count. "For long millennia," Vivisk said finally. "Too long? Time has ceased to hold much meaning for me," Vivisk said. The Dark Prince does not measure his song to a rhythm or meter that could be transcribed to a chronometer. Xantine could not hold back his grin. What? Irritated at the assumed mockery. When did you become such a philosopher, brother? Visk's face softened as much as his deformations allowed. Hardly. I merely listen for the song and attempt to follow its rhythm. And where does it lead you? To heights of joy and to depths of depravity. The extremes of sensation in service to our God. And what of me, brother? Xantine asked, his voice low, purring. Would you follow the song if it led you against your warlord? What are you asking? So many of our brothers have failed me. Would you join them? Xantine, I sabotaged the exhortation, Xantine cut in. I ordered explosives planted in weak points along the ship's hull. I arranged the failure of weapons, void shields, warp drives, life support. The words tumbled out. With Quarantoon they had been weapons. Blades driven into the word-bearer's back. Here he spoke to his true brother. They were catharsis. I confined us to an existence on this world, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Visk's bloodshot eyes were unreadable. The mouths on his neck were silent until he spoke. I know, the Noise Marine said. Xantine stared, dumbfounded. You know? I know. The Noise Marine repeated, simply. I know you, brother. This world is not harmony, and it never will be. Nor were the dozens before it. This has happened before, and it will happen again. Will you betray me? Xantine asked. I told you once that I would follow you wherever you took me. I still follow you, Xantine. Even if you walk your path alone. Liberation Day celebrations are now 14 minutes behind schedule, my lord, Corinth intoned. Don't you think I know that? Pyrod stared wild-eyed at the data slate. Scrolling through lists of names and times, Mistress Polfin's troop are still too inebriated to perform the dance of the pointed lash. Make yourself useful and get some stims. Corinth nodded and made himself scarce. Perhaps the day would be acceptable. After all, the crowd was large. That was a positive point, if an unsurprising one. Pirate had given the last of the solipsis supplies to the Overcity media, on the provision that they deliver a crowd that Xantine demanded be hundreds of thousands strong. Pirate was not about to let his master down, especially not after learning what happened to Toon, so he gave the militia free rein in exactly how they scared up the necessary people. Last he heard, those that refused the honour were to be mutilated, fingers and toes removed one by one until they saw sense and agreed to assist with the celebration. The day was to involve dancing, performance, music, and of course, live challenges, and would begin with an address from Xantine himself. Pirate had tried to convince his lord otherwise, to no avail. My lord, in my most humble opinion, it may be wise to reconsider your physical attendance at the ceremony. Why? Xantine had eyed him suspiciously. Do my people not deserve the pleasure of seeing their saviour in the flesh? Of course, my lord, Pirate had stammered, but your magnificent visage may be too much for some. Your resplendence is overwhelming, as anyone who had been lucky enough to spend time with you can attest. Perhaps you would be better served by observing the day's festivities at somewhere remote, say your chambers, or from the heights of the cathedral. Nonsense, Xantine had said. The day is mine, and who are you to deny my people the chance to worship their idol? And that was that. Xantine was due to take the stage at noon precisely, as the sun and the scar rose to their highest to celebrate the vanquishing of the Xenos threat, and to receive his adulation in front of hundreds of thousands of serene citizens, and Pyrod, his governor, had a sinking feeling in his gut. The city was different now from the city that Arkhat had known. Its wide marble streets were dirty, filled with the hungry and the desperate, the cruel and the callous. But it was the cathedral that he used to call home that had changed the most. Its once beautiful architecture had been twisted into asymmetrical shapes that seemed to swell and contract as he watched. An unsettling undulation that made his stomach flip. A drone emanated from its fleshy spires. An atonal dirge that made his head feel as if it were trapped in a vice. Its windows no longer held glassaic. Instead, they seemed to house giant eyes, black, glossy ovoids that blinked with moist pink lids. It was hideous. But worse still was the creature that stood in front of it, tall and proud. Serene's self-professed saviour had not aged a day since he had come to their world. His armour swirled with pinks and purples, a motion as discomforting as the rippling of the cathedral's walls. He spoke with a voice as sweet as nectar and as clear as the night sky, audible somehow over the lament from the cathedral. My subjects, Xantine said, today we celebrate. We celebrate the historic liberation of this world, and my liberation of its people. For generations you suffered under the yoke of the moribund Imperium, toiling for an uncaring master on far-off terror. Xantine waited for a reaction, and was rewarded with an enthusiastic round of boos from the cadre of nobles on the viewing platform. From the main crowd, the response was more muted. And then, just as it appeared that your fate was sealed, the Xenos worms burrowed up from the filth from whence they spawned. Arkat moved as Xantine spoke, parting the crowd with ease, his shoulders broad, and muscles inflated after months in the pit. His gladiators, those that saw righteousness in his cause, followed loosely, shoving anyone who would get in their way. They radiated anger as they travelled, a mere presence seeming to stir violence in the crowd. Fights broke out, stilettos and shivs used with abandon amidst the crush of humanity. Still, Xantine continued, used to his audiences finding themselves overcome with emotion. As a planet, as a people, you have suffered. But through this suffering, you found deliverance. You found salvation. The angel raised his arms, a perfect copy of the vast statue of the mythological saviour that remained embedded in the front of the cathedral of the bounteous harvest. You found me. We were better off without you, a man shouted, cheered by those who stood around him. Others took the chance to air more of their specific grievances. Give us runoff! Where's our food? A woman to Arkat's left yelled. Still, Xantine continued. And so we celebrate. But this is your day as much as it is mine. A day to count your blessings, that I choose to answer your prayers, and to fulfill your prophecy. Xantine gestured with the palm of his hand to the statue, before he turned back to the throng. Still, there are those who seek to lay me low, to take this world, to take you from me. Even my own brothers, gods curse their souls, hardened their hearts and strayed from my light. The slave stepped forward, his oiled body crossed with straps of black leather. The straps bound his face such that only his mouth was showing. All of his teeth had been removed. Xantine accepted the gilded box from the man and raised it high. Know this, people of Serene. As long as I draw breath, I will not allow anyone to take this world. Behold! He opened the lid of the box, tilted it forward, dumping the decapitated head onto the marble below. The traitor, Quarantune, is dead. The head bounced once, twice, before coming to a stop, its face aimed at the crowd. Its skin was so dry that it appeared as parchment, lined and inked with intricate tattoos that had turned blue-grey after death. Is that it? A man screamed. Where's our runoff? Another man, dishevelled and unwashed, picked up the call, chanting for the narcotic until the crowd's demands were louder than the nobles' cheers. The angel cast eyes across the mass, contempt written large on his features. He seemed to meet Arkat's stare for a moment, and Arkat felt himself beg for a flicker of recognition, at least something to show that the angel had destroyed his life, his world, for a purpose. But there was nothing in those turquoise orbs beyond self-regard. Arkat's blade arm twitched. He was desperate to swing it. Even in his rage, he knew that he would have one chance, one moment, to crest the stairs and sink his blade into the angel's throat. He realized then that he had been living for this moment, been killing for this moment. He would die in the attempt. He was sure of it. But it was worth it for revenge. For his brother, for Cecily, for Sanpow, for himself. I am a benevolent master, the angel said, his disgust at the crowd's reaction clear in his voice. You do not deserve one so magnificent. A man broke off from the crowd, pushing past the soldiers manning the cordon. He was thin, with long dark hair that trailed behind him as he ran, and he carried no visible weapon. Food, please, he cried as he ran up the marble steps towards Xantine. Saviour, my family, please. Xantine shot him through the stomach. The force of the impact spun his body towards the crowd, and for a moment, Arkat saw his face, ghost white before he fell, spilling his insides across the white marble of the steps. The effect was like a dam bursting. The crowd moved as one, pushing forward. Those at the front climbed the stairs, or were trampled underfoot, crushed to death by the organic mass. Caught in their gravitational pull, Arkat moved with them, surging towards his target, with 100, 1,000 like-minded souls. Anger boiled off the crowd, as pungent as the stink of filthy bodies. Pyrrhod tried to guess the number attempting to crest the stairs, but gave up quickly. There were simply too many. My lord, he voxed to Xantine. I suggest that we get you to safety. To safety? Xantine asked, incredulous. This is my world, not theirs, and I will not hide from my own people. They have forgotten who saved them, who made them who they are. I will help them remember. Then what do you suggest, my lord? They have failed me. The only punishment for betrayal is death. Las bolts and bolt shells cascaded down the great steps of the Cathedral of the Bounteous Harvest, like water from the edge of a cliff. The city's militia filed wildly, any semblance of discipline long forgotten as their brothers and sisters rushed the stage. Superheated energy and razor-sharp shrapnel tore through the first rank of human bodies, but still they came, climbing over mutilated corpses and the moaning wounded to reach their goal. Some, their way blocked, or their depravity wailing to seek any viable outlet, simply turned on each other, lashing out with shivs and daggers, spiked clubs and sharpened machetes. Arcat pushed on, using the weight of humanity as a shield. The man in front of him sagged, his stomach blown out by an autogun round, and Arcat grabbed his body by the scruff of his robes, catching the las bolts with the meat of the corpse. He felt the twitch and shudder of each strike through the man's body as he planted long legs on the steps leading up towards his quarry. The saviour was close now. Sophisticants, the mute, muscled shock troops of Xantine's army, formed a protective ring around their master. Spears held in a variety of fighting stances. Between them, Arcat saw a huge figure, his perfect olive skin and long black hair held in place by a golden circlet, a crown, unearned, bestowed upon himself. He was no king, he was no god, he was just a man. He would die just the same as all of them. Arcat readied his blade arm. The golden edge gleamed in the high sunlight, beautiful. He would redden it with the charlatan's blood. A sophisticant descended to meet him, her spear spiraling, her mask a sick mockery of the pitiful creature she protected. She fought with speed and skill, but he had a pit fighter's strength, and he caught the haft of her weapon in his forearm. The tip bit deep, and the impact bruised flesh, but it did not matter. Pain was fleeting, and the blood god cared not from whence the blood flowed. He locked the sphere with his blade arm, and pulled, wrenching the masked warrior towards him, towards his golden stiletto. Fine edge buried deep in the sophisticant's sternum, and she fell, shrieking from her placid mask. Further, forward, close enough to see turquoise eyes, purple armour, blackened lips. Arcat pulled his blade arm back, and readied it to bite into the flesh of his tormentor, to have his vengeance at long last. No. The voice was small, impossibly small against the endless dirge and the demented screams of the frenzied crowd, but he heard it as if it were the only sound in the world. No. It said again, softly this time, as softly as Nanny spoke to him, when she stroked his hair and helped him fall asleep. Don't do it, Arcat, Cecily said. Don't take this from me. Cecily? He asked, incredulous. Why are you here? And then more insistent. What did he do to you? Battle raged between them. Battle raged between them, the pink-clad warriors and their lackeys murdering hundreds, thousands of Serene's children. And yet, they spoke as if they stood across from each other in an empty room. I made a deal. He's our only chance to escape, Arcat. My only way to get off this rock. Even before he came, life here was torture. It's not too late. Come with us. I will not run, Arcat snarled. He has poisoned our world. Can you not see it? He must die. I can't let you do that, Cecily said. There was a profound sadness in her voice. Please, Arcat, don't make me stop you. Nobody can stop me now. Oh, my sweet boy, Cecily said, and Arcat felt her grief in his bones. You are one soul amongst a million. I could stop you as easily as breathing. Then try, he growled. Arcat did not see the blow coming. It hit him in the chest, a concussive force so hard that he launched clear off his feet and high above the heads of the surging crowd below, covering 10, 20, 30 steps as he flew. Bodies cushioned his fall, the soft mass of dead and still living humanity, still growing as the crowd, panicked, excited, demented, terrified, surged into the central square in front of the cathedral. Lying on his back amongst the tangled forest of limbs, Arcat could see the sky. The scar throbbed, visible even in the harsh sunlight. Purple, pink, green, and blue, and red, deep red, blood red, burning red. And then the world fell in on itself. Key structural supports had been worn away with careful precision, controlled detonations over the past few months ensuring maximum damage. Lady Undine had orchestrated the operation masterfully. All it needed was a critical mass. Sufficient weight of human bodies would prove too much for the city to support. As the crowd swelled, combining in the central square, that limit was reached. Just as Katria and her compatriots had planned, whole streets collapsed, taking hastily erected viewing platforms with them. Tens of thousands of souls fell too, unable to escape the pull of the maw that had been created underneath. They fell from the light into the darkness, howling in fear until their last, when their necks snapped, backs broke, or skulls shattered on the ancient foundations of Serene's Overcity. It was death on a monstrous scale. The extinction of so many souls, the capstone of years of bloodshed, did not go unnoticed. Arcat fell too. Unlike the screaming weaklings around him, he did not waste energy on fear or panic. It made sense now, in these final moments, why he had come back to this place. in the shadow of the cathedral, the source of his anger, his pain. Vengeance had not been enough. He had needed to be stronger, more strength, always more strength. He would spill his foes' blood, take their skulls and crush their bones. And so as he fell, he poured every ounce of his soul, of his being, into pure hatred. He found the hatred of others, millions, a world of pain and blood and anger that had curdled under Xantine's rule. Every death on Serene came to him. He channeled his focus, became such a perfect creature of rage that his organs ruptured and his bones shattered. In his moment of perfect oblivion, he found kinship with another being. The bloodthirster called itself Gore, but it had been better known by the name Gravemaker, by the billions of souls that it had killed. It was a beast of vengeance, and it sought out the wronged and the broken. It found Arcat, a burning core in a galaxy of suffering, his fury so perfect, his need for vengeance so absolute. Gore took his body. Gore took this body, this mutilated boy, and made him strong. In the name of vengeance, and in the name of the blood god, Arcat's moment of death became his moment of apotheosis, and just as he fell, he rose again on wings as black as coal. Edward hid while the others in his congregation chose their weapons. He watched as they left together, heading for the cathedral. What they planned to do there, at Xantine's celebration, he did not know, but he knew it would not be anything good. He sighed. It didn't matter. He just had to wait for them to go, and then he could make his way to the stores at the back of the temple and take as much runoff as his body could handle. He was scared now, but he would feel strong soon. Edward waited until he was sure that the last of the congregation had left the temple, then started to make his way towards the back of the chamber, past the huge cauldron at its centre. The stink of blood filled his nostrils as he came close. He could not fight the urge to look inside. Blood was thick, and it glistened in the brazier light. There were sounds of something from inside, he realized. He heard the music of war, the clash of blades, the tearing of flesh, and the howls of the dying. The meniscus of blood quivered, and Edward saw a hand, clawed and grasping, reaching from under the surface. A skull followed, long and ridged, with black glistening horns. Its eyes shone with murder, and it clutched a blade of pure brimstone. The demon took Edward in. On a dim level, it knew that this creature, soft and pink, had helped bring it into this realm. Were it capable of such an emotion, it might have felt gratitude. But the bloodletter knew only one thing. As more of its kin crawled from the cauldron of blood, it swung its burning sword and tore Edward's throat open. Another skull for its master's throne. Xantine could not see the moment of Arcat's apotheosis, but he certainly felt it. The psychic shock of a demon so powerful, ripping its way into the physical realm, struck the space marine like a punch from a power fist, and he fell to one knee. Pain he expected as his brain adjusted to the proximity of something ancient and monstrous, as he heard the accusing screams of a billion souls. "You did this!" they seemed to howl. They knew him culpable for this beast's arrival, that the barrier between real space and the warp had been weakened under years of his rule, that he had taken steps to encourage it, even, as if he did not know what could be lurking on the other side. Xantine felt indignation at the concept. There was another sensation, too, one he had not felt often in his long life. Fear. It came from deep within his body, the body he shared with his own demon. Xantine was afraid. He rose slowly, on unsteady legs. The abyss stretched before the cathedral, and out of it rose the creature that had terrified Xantine so. It stood 30 feet tall on cloven hooves, with fur the ash-grey of a cold funeral pyre, encrusted with spattered blood. Its huge, wedge-shaped head sported 4 massive horns, each knife-sharp tipped, capped with bronze, and a mouth that could not close around its massive fangs. Both of its arms bulged with unholy muscle, but the flesh of one of them ended at the elbow, the lower arm replaced by a whirling, smoke-belching chain blade, easily the rival of a Knight Despoiler's Reaper chainsword. "It is called Gravemaker," Xantine said, her spite etched with terror. Xantine understood her hatred for the demon. Their subtlety and sensuousness was at odds with its stark simplicity, and the demons of Khorne always preferred their foes to die a quick, bloody death rather than the agonizing, drawn-out ends that the followers of the Lord of Excess enjoyed. Slaanesh in turn despised Khorne, most of all their partners in the great game, and their champions had battled across the eons. "I have encountered it before," Xantine said, answering his unspoken question. "It is an abomination. It is the death of pleasure, the end of sensation. Mindless, endless vengeance." Gravemaker left footprints of flames that touched down on what remained of Liberation Square's marble terrace. Smaller demons of Khorne scrambled and crawled from the hole in the world behind their champion, bloodletters and fleshhounds ripping into those citizens who had not been cast to their death as part of the summoning ritual. The monstrosity swept its chain blade in lazy arcs, bisecting humans and demons alike as it made its inexorable way towards the stage. "Shoot it," Pyrod ordered, his voice crackling with terror. The governor had been afforded a seat on the stage for the Liberation Day celebrations, an honour that he had told Corinth he would not have given up on pain of death. Now that death was a potentially imminent reality, he dearly wished he could retract both the statement and the sentiment. Las bolts of the militia were joined by bolt weaponry fired by the few remaining space marines of the Adored. One of the pink-armoured warriors, Pyrod could not remember the man's name, and had taken to call him Smiler, hefted a melter-gun, tilting its heat-stained barrel up to face the foe. The space marine activated the gun's fuel feed, hooting in anticipation as it hummed to life in its hands, its arcane mechanisms building killing energy until moments later he squeezed the trigger. Pyrod felt the scorching backwash even from yards away, as a blast of extreme heat roared from the barrels of the gun towards the beast. A meltgun could core a rhino tank, but as the heat haze dissipated, it left no trace on the monster's body beyond some singed fur. Smiler howled in sadness and was fumbling with the weapon, preparing for a second shot, when the beast's chain blades connected with his shoulder. The massive weapon passed through the reinforced ceramite as if it were thin fabric, splitting the now gibbering space marine in half with a single blow. "We have to get out of here," Pyrod said, scanning the area for exits. The stage had been erected at the top of the grand steps leading to the cathedral, but there were ways back to the rear of the structure, old passages and pathways that had not been destroyed by the Xenos uprising, or consumed by the cathedral's organic growth. "And Lord Xantine?" Corinth asked at his side. "Lord Xantine will either be able to beat this thing on his own, in which case he will need his governor in one piece, or..." Pyrod let the possibility dangle in the air, rather than say it out loud. Corinth hesitated too long. Pyrod chose not to wait for his attendants. He broke into an unpracticed run, pushing past panicked human soldiers and magenta-clad sophisticants as they trained their weapons on the building-sized behemoth. The cathedral rose in front of him, its walls swelling with the music that was produced from within. Protrusions like fingers reached for him as he pushed his way through the spongy side entrance door, the music reaching a terrible crescendo as he tottered through cloisters and alleyways on his way down, out of the sunlight, to darkness. Red. He had risen again, and the world was red. Red of fresh blood, bright and hot. Of old blood, crimson encrusted. The red of anger, boiling, foaming, consuming. The red of death, short and sharp, and long and slow. It did not matter. He had seen 1,000,000,000 deaths on 1,000,000 worlds. He could remember them all. Remember the skulls he had reaped. Remember the blood he had shed, in honour of his god, in honour of murder itself. He could remember one death, not the death of the body, but the death of the soul, a mutilation, callous and careless, thoughtless and honourless. He saw a boy cut down into his innocence by an angel of pain. He saw the blood that cascaded from his wound. Red. His wound, his blood, his soul. He would have vengeance. "Blood for the blood god!" he roared in a voice that had doomed 1,000,000 worlds. Conventional weapons, the las and autoguns of Serene's militia, had no visible effect on the bloodthirster, and men and women turned and ran as the demon crested the great steps of the Cathedral of the Bounteous Harvest. Even Xantine's sophisticants, their minds warped by decades of chemical abuse and conditioned to be unwaveringly loyal to their lord, trembled in the face of the beast, backing away or breaking entirely as its buzzing chain blade turned living people into human wreckage. Phaedra and Cecily, both of whom had been given seats of honour at the side of the stage as Xantine's muses, wailed in agony and clutched their skulls, the demon's mere presence a crushing weight on their profoundly psychic minds. Only Xantine stood, defiant in the face of one of Khorne's greater demons. "This world is mine," he roared. "I will not let any take it from me." Joy swelled in his heart as he held his position at the centre of the stage that had been made for him, on the world that he ruled. He had been its saviour before, and he would be again. "I challenge you, demon," he called, making use of his surgically advanced throat to project his voice so that his subjects could hear his words, even over the sounds of their own demise. "I am the Adored. I am the Lord of Serene, its saviour. I subjugated 1,000 Neverborn through sheer strength of will. I am Xantine of the Emperor's children, and I will not be bested by a creature so crass." He twirled his rapier in his right hand, raising his left in a crude gesture of contempt, aimed at the massive bloodthirster. "Break yourself upon me, demon, and pray that I have..." The punch connected with the force of a building collapsing. Xantine was launched backwards, moving so fast as if he had been teleported. His back hit the wall of the cathedral first, closely followed by his head. A ringing filled his ears, loud enough to drown out the screams. He touched a gloved hand to his nose. It came away dark with blood. He licked his blackened lips, tasting the metallic substance, and pulled himself to his feet. To his chagrin, the bloodthirster had turned its back on him, and was now sweeping its gigantic chain blade through the ribcage of a sophisticant too brave or too adult to flee the field. Xantine fired the pleasure of the flesh, the gun's mass reactive shells flowering on the bloodthirster's torso, but leaving no mark. The pistol squealed as it was fired, bucking in his hand, terrified and exhilarated to have its payload used against such a being. Bloodletters rushed Xantine as he strode forward, but he cut Khorne's lesser foot soldiers down without breaking his focus on the much larger bloodthirster. The flesh of the Neverborn fizzled and spat where the rapier cut through it. A shard of the ancient Eldari weapon, expertly tuned and blessed 100-fold for the express purpose of banishing the corporeal form of the gods' demons. Their blades clattered to the marble floor as they were ripped back from the physical plane, their weapons in the stench of boiling blood on the air, the only indication that they had existed at all. The bloodthirster was close now, close enough to strike. Xantine drove anguish into the giant demon's thigh. Gravemaker yowled in surprise and pain, spun to face its attacker. "Behold!" Xantine called, as black smoke rose from the wound in the demon's leg. "I am Xantine, and you will bow before my..." Another blow sent him careening backwards. Gravemaker reached for the rapier still lodged in his massive thigh and pulled, yanking the weapon free with a gout of demonic blood that ran as hot as magma. The beast hurled the blade away, roaring frustration to its god on his skull throne. It turned and locked brazier eyes on Xantine, rising once more to his feet. "I have your attention now, brute," Xantine said triumphantly through the blood in his mouth. A new red. The red of pain. A pinprick of agony. Gravemaker pulled the thorn from his thigh and searched for the one who had placed it there. He found him, and he knew him. A feeble creature, long hair, shining armor, covered in pointless trinkets. One of the preening things. He picked it up from the ground where it lay. It thrashed in his grip. Blade cut furrows into his massive fingers. Hot blood they spilled smelled like 1,000 wars, like 1,000,000 deaths. The little man was speaking, but he did not hear it. He inspected the thing to determine how it would die. The beast had come, as Sejanth had hoped it would. No, as she had known it would. There had been so much blood that she had felt the thin veil between her realm and the realm of mortals. Blood shed in the myriad fighting pits found in both the Overcity and the Undercity. Shed for the cauldrons of gore that now spewed forth Khorne's minions. Blood from Lady Cutria and Lady Ariel, whose rage had damned their friends and families and let their city fall into oblivion. And blood, most importantly of all, from the broken boy who rose now on wings of ash and flame, had been the perfect vessel, so empty and yet so full of rage. She had done nothing other than allow it to occur. She simply waited for it to reach its crescendo, at which point she would find her true partner, the soul strong enough to carry her back to her god. "Come now, my love," Sejanth said, calling to him. "I am coming," Torokon answered her. The young space marine threw off his rough cloak, revealing his form. Pink, raw skin covered his face, scabbed from his brush with true death in Sarkwell's molten metal cavern. Finely crafted features had been burned away. His ears were no more than small nubs of cartilage, and his aquiline nose had gone, revealing 2 darkened holes at the centre of his face. His head was hairless, and his armour a burnished silver, the pink and purple paint having been stripped away, first by the heat of the metal, and then by Torokon's own blade as a rejection of his role at Xantine's side. "So close," Sejanth whispered, as her new host drew nearer, his long blade in blistered hands. "So close. Come to me, my love. Free me from my prison." Gravemaker brought Xantine close to its face. Xantine smelled sulphur as the demon opened its mouth, and the cold dirt of the grave. The demon's eyes burned, unblinking as they scanned his body. "I have bled countless of your ilk, the dregs of your sire's skill. He was strong," Bloodthirster snorted, its words slow to come and formed with difficulty. Flecks of spittle flew like embers from an inferno, and Xantine winced at each one. "You are not. You are nothing." Wounded pride burned into his chest, worse than the crushing pain of the demon's grasp. "I am everything, demon," Xantine gasped, fighting for breath against the iron-hard grip. "There is no other in this world, in this galaxy, more magnificent than me, and I will show you my true power." With conscious effort, he opened his mind, opened his soul, and pushed a thought to the creature that shared his body. "I give myself to you," he said to Sergeant. "Let us join our strength as one." He received no answer, just whispers in the corner of his mind, as if she was speaking to someone else in another chamber. "Do not be afraid, my love," he said, trying again. "Together we can defeat this monstrosity, as we have defeated the greatest foes." Once more, he received no answer. "I will crush you," the Bloodthirster bellowed. "Die now and savour your ending." Gravemaker hurled Xantine into the marble floor, and he felt bone break in his back. "Help me," Xantine said as he coughed black blood. His body was failing him, but he could survive this day, as he had many before, by entreating the demon inside him to come to his aid. A moment of silence, tacit in the cosmic song, where all screams, all cries, all music dropped out. Xantine heard the beating of his twin hearts, and then the simple answer, "No," Sergeant said. Any sense of fear that he felt from the demon had dissipated. In its place was contempt. Cruel, mocking laughter echoed in his skull. "You think I fear this creature? A being as luminous and transcendental as I am, as I have always been." "Why?" Xantine asked simply. "Because you are weak. Because I deserve stronger. I deserve better. And I have found it." Pain brought clarity, sudden and sharp, and Xantine could see the demon, exultant in her triumph. Realization followed. "Because I would not let you control me. Because you could not take what I would not allow. Insidious lies! You were nothing but a servant to me, mortal, and now you shall see what true perfection looks like." The Bloodthirster pinned him under a burning hoof the size of a rhino's entry hatch. Ceramite squealed and circuitry crackled as the demon pressed its weight down upon the Space Marine, fracturing armor like the shell of some gaudy crustacean. It raised its chain blade, the whirring saw spitting viscera and bone fragments nigh into the ash-laden air. Its wings blocked out the sun, and Xantine waited for the moment of death. There would be pain, he was sure of that. The chain blade came down on Xantine, down like an executioner's axe, down like the sun setting on a burning world, down like Abaddon's Tlaloc on Canticle City, black and monstrous and ending. Pain, unimaginable pain, pain at an atomic level, pain so great that he felt his soul crack and tear. But it was not the pain of the chain blade, ragged, raw, and base. It was abandonment. "He is here," Sergeant said, exultant. "He is here. My saviour." She was leaving him. The demon pulled away, and he reached for her, clutching for her form. In his agony, in his weakness, he could no longer keep her there. She slipped through his fingers, her skin soft as mist and as fine as silk. "I'm coming, my love," she said, and it murdered him to know that she was speaking to another. "No!" he screamed. "Don't leave me! I need you! Please!" But she was gone. There was a terrible, yawning absence in her place. A place of swelling agony and endless dark. He was alone, dying under the hoof of a monster he could no longer hope to defeat. Death, at least, would come in moments. Death did not come. Xantine opened his eyes and saw the chain blade stopped, inches from his face. Gore-soaked teeth caught on a silver rapier. Their progress stopped by the ancient weapon. The chain blade belched black smoke, revving hard, but the rapier held firm. Xantine traced the weapon, his weapon, back to its wielder. Silver armor shone gold with the reflected light of the flaming demon. White hair, long and straight, cascaded once more from the warrior's head. He was beautiful again, restored from his mutilated form by Sergeant's grace, handsome and delicate, strong and graceful, with eyes the deepest violet. Figure was tall, taller than Xantine, taller than any of his brother Astartes, a giant as tall as... "Father?" Xantine gasped as the Bloodthirster's hoof constricted his airways. "Have you returned?" With a voice like an angel's song, the figure laughed, loud and long. It was the last sound Xantine heard as his consciousness faded. Fabius Bile had built him to be stronger, faster, better than his brothers. But only now did Toricon understand true perfection. He gave himself to the demon, wholly and without question, and she gave him everything he desired in return as she entered his body. His blistered skin smooth, turning porcelain pale, and becoming so luminous that it shone with an interior light. His hair regrew, sprouting from once dead follicles and tumbling down his back, as white as the hair of his legion's Primarch. His body lengthened, the muscles and bones of his limbs growing in perfect proportion with his lithe torso, till he towered over those of his brothers that remained on the blood-soaked promenade. His armour became supple, gracefully flowing with his changing body, flowing over bare skin with the softest touch. Where before it had been scorched and unadorned ceramite by the molten metal, it shone now in radiant amethyst, the colour of rulers, of kings and emperors. "I will give you the galaxy," the voice like silk said, and Torokon saw possibilities stretch out in front of him, endless and delicious. "All I ask in return is your body." "Yes!" Torokon cried, ecstatic. "Together we will be perfect." Together they turned to the bloodthirster. The demon stood over a smaller figure, pinning it to the marble of the cathedral's forecourt. The figure was scarcely more than a man, clad in armour of mismatched purples and pinks. It was mewling something, and they felt a flicker of pity for it now, for what it could have been, for the paucity of its ambition. Pity turned to anger. This thing, this useless thing, had stymied them both with its ego and its small-mindedness. They would kill it, but they would punish it first. And this base beast would not spoil their enjoyment. The bloodthirster was slow, so slow. Flecks of spittle flew from its fanged maw, and seemed to hang in the air, as dark and perfect as polished onyx. They poked at one of the globules, feeling it burst, hot against the bare skin of their finger. They smiled in pleasure at the sensation. The momentary spark of pain replaced by the liquid salve of the cooling fluid. The demon of Khorne brought its chain blade back, preparing to tear the small figure apart. It had not even noticed their closeness. Such was their speed. A shining object on the floor caught their attention. Sharp, beautiful, and full of agony. They took it with their new hands, flawless fingers clasping the hilt of anguish, measuring it for the picosecond it took to gauge its weight and balance point. Chainblade fell. They intercepted it, catching the brutish, buzzing weapon with the Xenos rapier's tip. They absorbed the power of the strike before effortlessly allowing the energy to travel through the perfectly balanced body. Gravemaker turned its horned head and widened, blazing eyes in delicious surprise. "You!" it roared. A new enemy. Another angel. But this one was different, strong. It burned with a cold light that hurt its eyes, and moved like quicksilver. It wielded the thorn, the sharpened tip digging furrows into its unholy flesh. He forced himself to gaze upon the face of his tormentor. He saw a visage he recognized. Perfect features, long white hair, shining purple armor. The demon, he was an insect to crush. To the boy, he was something else. Myth, legend, god, liar, betrayer, mutilator. An image in the cathedral, 2 decades ago. The angel who took his arm, took his world, took his life. It had not been Xantine, he understood. But this one instead. He saw those violet eyes, the same cruelty and callousness. He stood in front of him now. Serene's prophesied son returned at last. Arcat would have vengeance. He would enjoy it. The bloodthirster's chainblade screamed as its iron teeth strained against the silver tip of anguish, but the blessed Eldari weapon held firm. Gravemaker grunted in frustration and pulled its huge weapon free. It levelled it at its new challenger, gesturing with its massive fist at the tortured flesh and warped sinew where the blade had been attached to the demon's form. "You did this!" the bloodthirster roars. "I will kill you." "You may try," Torokon said, his mouth splitting into a feline smile without his command. Gravemaker swung its chainblade for a second strike, aimed this time at its new foe. It growled the name of long-dead worlds, and memories of their final hours came unbidden to Torokon's mind. Lakes of blood, towers of skulls, entire civilizations, entire species, reduced to meat and gristle by the blade of this creature. Such a tiresome existence, to simply kill, kill, and kill again. Butchery, not art, excess without perfection. Torokon could not countenance such monotony. The Space Marine had sampled many of the galaxy's most exotic excesses, but giving his body to Sajant had opened his eyes to experiences beyond his ken. Together they would drink deeper and reach new heights of sensation. But first, they would destroy this abomination. They ducked the chainblade's decapitating arc, and buried anguish deep into the bloodthirster's flank. The demon roared again, in pain this time, and staggered sideways, trampling 2 of its smaller kin underfoot, their skulls broken open beneath burning hooves. Gravemaker battered at the rapier with its chainblade arm, but succeeded only in opening the wound further, darkening its flank with boiling black blood. Driven half mad by pain and rage, Bloodthirster turned and charged. Torokon tried to roll with the blow, but the raw ferocity of the attack was more than even his warp-touched body could avoid, and the combatants fell together, shattering marble and shaking foundations as they smashed to the ground. The Bloodthirster's chainblade revved against Torricon's ear, the sound raw and rhythmic, and he smelled the charnel house stink of the demon's breath in his nose. You! It snarled again, pinning Torricon's body under its dead weight. Torricon's hand found a discarded weapon, the curved charnel saber of one of his dead brothers. Fingers tightened around the two-handed blade, and the possessed Space Marine thrust upwards, driving the saber into the Bloodthirster's armpit. The beast roared again, and Torricon took his chance, pulling Anguish from Gravemaker's body and twisting out of its grasp. Boiling blood spattered white marble as the rapier came free. "Do you know me, beast?" Torricon asked. He spun the Eldari weapon in his hands, fast enough that it became a silver blur. The monomolecular tip screamed as it cut through the air, adding its keening wail to the endless dirge of the noise marines, playing on through the carnage outside. "You brought me here. The blood you spilt." The demon spoke with Arkat's memories, the burning image of Torricon bringing his saber across his arm, driving it forward. Panting, Gravemaker charged again, and Torricon pirouetted out of reach, raking saber and rapier at ankle height. Both blades bit deep, tearing red skin and sinew, and the Bloodthirster stumbled once more, skidding to the ground. On bronze-armoured knees, it rose, slowly, in front of the Cathedral of the Bounteous Harvest. High above stood the statue of the Saviour, a four-armed figure, a perfect mirror of Torricon's warp-touched form. The possessed Space Marine drew his bolt pistol. The Bloodthirster roared, unfurling its vast wings. "I am murder. I am carnage. I am death." "And I," Torricon said as he aimed his bolt pistol upwards, "am bored." He fired once, 2, 3 shots into the edifice at the front of the cathedral. High above, dislodged from its position by the explosion of the mass reactive shells, the massive statue of the Saviour started to fall. "Bored!" Gravemaker bellowed. "I will rip your skin and eat your bones. I will—" The statue slammed into the Bloodthirster's neck, the weight of ancient stone taking its legs out from underneath it. Its horned chin slammed hard into the ground, so hard that it crackled the marble slabs beneath. The light in its brazier eyes dimmed, the flame guttering. The song of the noise marines reached a crescendo, a moment of triumph. Torricon savoured it. He did not run, but he walked slowly towards the prone Bloodthirster, raising Anguish like a ceremonial dagger. Together, Torricon and Xantine drove the weapon through the crown of the Bloodthirster's skull, deep and true. Gravemaker roared in pain and confusion as the monomolecular blade carved a perfect path through its brain pan, severing the connections that bound the demon to the physical realm. It was a true Maruskara, a killing cut. Steam and smoke rose from the wound. The demon's body started to wilt. Muscle and fur, horns and teeth fell away, collapsing like ash, until nothing was left but the fire's dying embers. Black sand became black ash, swirling and spinning as it was caught in the hot wind. Sound followed vision, and Xantine heard the bellow of Khorne's demons, squeals of dying mortals, and underneath it all the endless dirge from the cathedral. A giant in purple armour strode across his view. He saw it lay the beast low. It was beautiful, like a figure from legend, a figure from history. "Father?" he called weakly. Agony now. His nerves sang with pain, more than he could remember. Xantine had been a salve for his wounded body, he realized. And with her gone, a patchwork of fractures and scars revealed itself. Every cut, every blow, every impact he had taken while sharing his body with the demon. He felt them now, rendering him almost insensate with physical agony. But even that pain paled in comparison with the agony in his soul. He felt a gnawing, empty cavern, as deep and dark and as cold as the void. She had gone. Xantine had left him, in his hour of need. The giant in purple armour savoured the remaining battle, and with one of his generals destroyed, the Blood God's remaining demons were easy prey. The giant moved through the remaining bloodletters, and those crazed mortals who dared come too close. With a dancer's grace, he delivered sweet absolution at the end of the blade. Xantine could but watch the performance, both his body and his will too broken to intercede. Only with the performance complete did the giant come to pay tribute to the ruler of Serene. In clear focus now, Xantine saw that he had his father's noble bearing and his refined poise. The giant dropped to a knee in front of him, and Xantine met his eyes, violet eyes. They were the same colour as Fulgrim's. But there was no warmth in the violet orbs that stared back. They were feline, and as he watched, they darkened until they became midnight black. Xantine spoke with Torricon's voice. Finally, she said, a worthy host. The question came unbidden to his mind. He wanted to ask it of both of them, of the demon and of the image of his father, Fulgrim. He wanted to ask it of his brothers too, those who had turned against him. Finally, he wanted to ask it of the world itself, these people into whom he had put so much attention. Xantine tried to stop himself. He was too insensible from fatigue and injury to stop it from slipping past his bloodied lips, and he asked it, why did you betray me? Xantine's mocking laughter reminded Xantine of the collapsing crystal spires of Canticle City. A more pertinent question, why did I stay so long with someone so imperfect? You chose me, Xantine breathed. I chose a pawn, a puppet whose frame I could manipulate until I found a better servant. She turned on the spot, admiring her new form. I think this is an upgrade. Do you not agree? Xantine remained silent. He felt his secondary heart slowing over time. The wound was grievous, and he would need medical attention soon in order to keep the organ functioning. Xantine was not ready to give up on the topic yet, however. Do you believe yourself to be my first choice? Oh, sweet child. Xantine stood over his stricken frame. Strong and vital as Fulgrim had been, you were one of 1,000 souls whose ears my message reached. She knelt once more, then traced a long finger on one of Torricon's new hands down Xantine's cheek. It was ice-cold to the touch. You were simply a vessel, a container for something more powerful and more beautiful than you could imagine. She stood once more and raised her arms to the sky. Me, she said, exultant. I understand, Xantine said, using his pain to fuel his pride. He tilted his face to Torricon's and met their violet eyes with defiance. You could not take control. You tried. By the Dark Prince, we both know how hard you tried. But I was too strong. You could not manipulate me, he coughed, and bright blood splattered his blackened lips. So you found another, malleable, weak, stupid. He forced a laugh. You deserve each other. The stink of your jealousy is intoxicating, she said. The Flesh Lord showed his talent with this one, I can assure you. She straightened her arms, flexing their bulging muscles, as if trying on armour for the first time, and nodded approvingly. He hates you, Xantine, you know. He truly does. He loved you once, but your mistreatment hardened his soul against you. I did not mistreat him. He betrayed me. You abandoned him. You left him to die in the bowels of this world. Even so, he still holds a flicker of love for you. I can feel him now, torn between his emotions. Xantine put 2 hands to her heart, an affectation of theatrical grief, before laughing again. It bursts the most piquant hatred, the sweetest betrayal, this love. That is why we are drawn to your kind. After all we can offer you, your brotherhood is still coded into your base flesh. The ground shifted once more, sending Anguish skittering towards Xantine. He caught the rapier and used it to lever himself forwards as his vision dimmed. Like an iridescent insect, Xantine crawled, a cacophony of pain filling his ears as he dragged himself towards the fissure. Now, my love, Xantine said, blocking out the bright sun with her form as she moved to stand over Xantine. What are we to do with you? He reached the edge of the chasm, a trap he had walked into that had spilled so much blood that it brought death to his kingdom. His fingers curled around the edge, finding broken ferrocrete and rebar under the marble surface. Xantine looked up into the face of his brother. You are to see my glory, he said, and hauled himself into the hole. Xantine fell, his broken body spinning, into darkness. End Part 3. I don't know which was more epic. This bit, this climax against the Bloodthirster, or the showdown with Sarkwell. They both felt like, I thought that showdown with Sarkwell was such an epic little climax, and this is just, this is amped up the scale significantly. I didn't see Arcat being possessed by a Bloodthirster. Also, it was really nice to see that exploration of what it means to be, you know, the sacrifice for a greater demon, where the greater demon wears you as its primary sort of memory. It still is itself, but it's also whoever the sacrifice is, which is really cool to see. That's never really been something. That's never really been something I've seen explored, and I really liked seeing it. I thought it was very cool. What else? What else? What other thoughts? Edward, poor Edward. He tried so hard, and didn't get very far, and it really didn't matter. That poor guy. He just wanted to get high, and yeah, rip bozo, I guess. Toricon though, when he got possessed, what an absolute glow up. Xantine is a fucking bitch, like hands down. So want to see her die somehow. I mean, she's got to, right? Eventually, it's spoken so much about how her death is the final death for her because she's been severed from the warp, and so she needs a host to survive. What is Xantine gonna do? I guess he's he fell in the same way Sarkwell did. The book would end there if Xantine died. So obviously Xantine's our primary protagonist. He's gonna still be alive. I wonder what happened to Cecily and Phaedra. I wonder where they are. I suppose we'll see in the next part. But my word, that was a very cool chapter. Also, I didn't realise it was Toricon who cut Arkat's arm off way back when. Because the only thing they had in common was that they had white hair. And he was wearing a mask when he cut Arkat's arm off, if I remember right. And Toricon never wore a mask until then. So I just thought it was some random Emperor's Children, like, Space Marine with, like, white hair. Which, you know, is a pretty common feature for most of them. So, yeah, did not expect that. Really didn't expect that. But I'm here for it. I thought it was very cool. Also, they went really hard on the description of Toricon, like how he was all burnt up and crusty and scabby, how he'd lost his ears and nose and was basically just melted and deformed. Like, he really didn't get through that stuff, like the Sarkwell's trap, very well. It was so cool. It was so cool. I want to see bad things happen to Xantine. I hope they do. I hope she gets real bad comeuppance at some point. I think that was actually the longest chapter in the whole book so far. It was really good though. I really enjoyed it. What is chapter 4 going to be about? My guess is that Toricon/Xantine now rules the planet. And they're just going to push to, like, leave and take as many slaves and shit as they can. That's my thoughts. Xantine is obviously going to try and, you know... He's a spiteful, vain bastard. And I love him. He's obviously going to try and spite them one final time and leave them to it, I imagine. I wonder how he's going to do it. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I wonder if Xantine's going to have any of his brothers left on his side. I feel like Vivisk is like his bro for all time and is always going to be there for him. I don't know what about Lordling though, and I don't think there's any other really named Emperor's Children guys left. I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. There can't be that many of them. We know that they've lost about 15 to 20. So there's just over half of the Emperor's Children Space Marines left. I think. Just over half. I think about half of them have died from the casualty reports we got before. So it should be interesting to see. Yeah.